Well, Michelle, you are many things, best-selling author and expert on positive psychology, which is so much wealth of wisdom that I know you're going to share. But you're also a change activist. So just talk to me, what is a change activist?
Yeah, so a change activator, a bit more than an activatist, is just about trying to find small ways that we can create big differences in our lives. I think you're right, from positive psychology and growing field of wellbeing science, we're learning so much more about how our brains work, how our bodies work, how we can show up and have more courage in really natural ways. But it's one thing to learn it, it's another thing to do it. So I really look for small, playful, fun ways that we can kind of close that knowing-doing gap. That after learning some of this information, we can immediately apply it. Because we know from the research that if we don't act within 48 hours of learning some of these great new ideas that you're sharing with people, we tend to need a whole nother conversational prompt to get us moving in those directions.
So I couldn't agree more that it is about actually taking action. And of course, old habits of being and thinking die really hard. We just get so in our default mode. But you talked about being playful. And you know, I was talking to you a few weeks ago and you were talking about some work that you're doing and you said, I'm just playing with it. And it really hit me at the time that I loved your language around that. I'm just playing with it. It made it lighter, like you weren't going to fail at it because you were playing with it. There was no failing. And I just, at the time, I really picked up on that language that, oh, I need to use that more of myself. Like, I need to just play with even these interviews. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't done them before. I'm not trained in this. And we can get really hard and critical on ourselves going, I'm just playing with pretending that I'm I'm an interviewer. So talk to me about playfulness and why is that important?
So I became fascinated in this area a few years ago when I read Gandhi's biography, My Experiments with Truth. And it really lit this idea in me about what if life was actually this giant experiment rather than taking it so seriously all the time. One of the things we know, particularly for women, is we like to do things really well. In fact, most of us like to do things perfectly first time out of the gate. And it's one of the things that causes us to hesitate, undermine our own sense of confidence and hold ourselves back from really doing some of the things we want. So I started experimenting with this idea of experimenting. And the more I got into it, I also started coming across more of the research about play and playfulness as well. And of course, one of the things we often lose as we get older is that sense of permission that we can still play. You know, as we get older, we tend to tell our kids, grow up, stop being so silly, you know, and that happens for us as well as part of our journey. But actually, playfulness is a wonderful state where we get to explore, test ideas and try them out without being so attached to the outcomes. So we're not so afraid of failing, as you touched on. We're more open to the learning. And it was a really helpful framing for me, as you say, a vocabulary of thinking, if I just play with this idea for a while and see where it goes, and it made it a whole lot easier to show up and try things.
Yeah, I think you are so right. I know myself over the years, even with clients saying, if I could wave a magic wand, you know, what would you love to do? I mean, a year from now, 5 years from now, what would you love to have created? What would you love, you know, this area of your life to look like, your whole life? And just that by playing with waving a magic wand, of course I don't have one, but it just puts people into that place of, oh, if we just played make-believe. And I think it can be really helpful in that too when it comes to making changes or going after something.
Absolutely, and because what it allows us to do when we just play with the magic wand and imagine what life could look like, it starts to ignite our sense of hope about what's really possible and what do we care about. And we know now from the neuroscience that when we start to get those images of what's possible in the future, it actually starts to pull us forward into taking action, into wanting those kind of rewards, into understanding that those things are important to us. And it changes then the things that we do behind having waved that magic wand, which is such a simple exercise that can be incredibly powerful. Again, creates a space for us to play.